Welcome to the AI Corner. I'm your host, Mike Bailey, here to spotlight the people shaping New Zealand's AI future. In today's episode, we're speaking with Asa Cox. Asa is the founder and CEO of Arcanum AI, who are focused on practical back office automation and AI assistance for SMBs in ANZ. Asa runs a partner-first model and pushes a clear thesis, which is to take AI to your data to drive measurable outcomes, which I'm sure we'll talk plenty about. Welcome to the pod, Asa.
Great to be here. Looking forward to it.
Appreciate you joining. You've been in the AI space for quite some time before the whole ChatGPT takeoff. Tell us all about it. How did you get pulled in?
Yeah, good question. It has been a while. Somebody at an event a few months ago introduced me as the grandfather of AI in New Zealand, I wasn't sure how to take it. I guess it's somewhat complimentary that I've been around for a while in the space. Yeah, started in 2016 and not a typical, I guess, journey. I was in the pharmaceutical industry for a long time, from based out of the UK and then in Canada. Created a data consulting business in that space. That kind of got me into tech. I spent a bit of time in Silicon Valley and Toronto. And so when I moved to New Zealand 13 years ago, there wasn't a lot in New Zealand in terms of the pharmaceutical industry. I had a young family, didn't want to travel as much as I was. And so I kind of pulled the thread on the tech kind of interest. And one thing led to another, as it does quite often. Serendipity happens. You talk to people, you follow through on ideas. And I became, one of the original AI guys in New Zealand.
Wow. So you must have seen a lot of change since then as well.
Oh, huge. I mean, some of the conversations are the same. People still worry about the Terminator, which they, did back then as they do now. But yeah, there's been a huge amount of change. I mean, we started at a time when only big government, big enterprise were willing to spend some money on R&D. And that R&D was really, are things going to be possible? Are there early shoots of promise for some of the use cases? And a lot of that was predictive analytics, a little bit of machine learning, took huge amounts of data. We spent 80% of our time cleaning data, preparing data for model training. And the outcomes were, whilst technically impressive, were underwhelming from a business perspective. You'd get a CSV file with some numbers in it that was a prediction of something important, but didn't feel very impressive if you were a business exec. And it was only really once we started getting into computer vision that the business traction happened, because it was easy for people to see what was going on, right, where the value was. And so we spent quite a bit of time in that space and had fantastic work with TransPower and New Zealand Police. We worked with New Zealand Rugby with the All Blacks and the Japan World Cup. So yeah, it was a lot of fun once you kind of started building something that people actually appreciated, rather than having to convince them that $100,000 for a CSV was worth their money.
That's a tough sell in any market, I'm sure. So it sounds as though you've been around the tracks, but you mentioned data at the beginning, and you're still doing a lot with data at the moment. Like, it's never been more important, and those principles still hold true. Has the conversation changed at all around the importance of data? Are people understanding it more than they used to?
It's a good question. I think yes and no, to be honest. I mean, back then it was all about structured data, and that was a big challenge when it was coming out of systems that maybe had holes in the data, too many null values, and it was all kind of dirty data. The systems weren't designed, obviously, for training machine learning models, and so the rigor around the data quality wasn't there. So that was a concern and a consideration, and a blocker to a lot of projects going forwards. So there was an understanding of the importance of data. That still persists now, but obviously it's kind of like now all data is on the table rather than just certain amounts of data, because the use cases are now so broad. We still find though that a lot of people assume or presume that data is a blocker to doing anything with AI. As I said, when we started, you'd need gigabytes of data to train a model. Now you can get value from like a single PDF, right? It's literally the scale of data required has now reduced significantly. The value's gone up. Yes, there are still really important things to consider about the quality of data, but it shouldn't be seen as the big blocker that it used to, because there's a lot you can do with small data or very limited data.
So it's interesting you say that, because as you say, structured data has always been important, but now we can actually work with unstructured data to make ends meet and to prove value from data which previously didn't make sense to humans, let's call it. I mean, how do you advise clients on how they should think about using structured data versus unstructured data, and what are the different pockets of value that unlock when you think about how those different components kind of work together?
Yeah, it is interesting. Probably up until 6 months ago, structured data was kind of off the radar a bit because it was kind of locked away in systems,
Mm.
or you were beginning to think about it in the old school way of old school, multiple years ago, talking about predictive models and kind of more that kind of data analysis, data science kind of approach. But in the last few months, MCP servers, so machine control protocol has begun to unlock system data. And so now you can start building use cases where you can read and write or analyze data that's locked away in systems, so structured data. And so now you've got this real, just open GAM. You can do anything with anything now, really. Once you get the systems connected, then you've got so many use cases to go after. So I think again, it's just an incredibly fast journey of kind of structured data is only for predictive modeling and so on. It's kind of off limits a bit for BI reporting. So you just deal with a few documents and emails, and everyone goes, "Oh, that's not quite so interesting." And then literally a few months later, now all data is available so long as you can connect to it.
Oh yeah, the possibilities have sort of become endless, haven't they? And I suppose when you first kicked off Arcanum, what were the problems that you were trying to solve for in the early days?
To start with, is getting anybody to listen was the first problem because there was really just no understanding of what AI was. I mean, to the point where probably from 2016 to 20, well, probably all the way up to 2023, to be fair, you kind of went from calling it data science to machine learning back to AI again. It kind of depended on the mood in the business environment was, well, AI is scary, so we'll stay away from that. Machine learning sounds smarter, but actually it's really hard to get to. Data science is connected to data scientists, and we have a few of those, so let's focus on that. So the problem's being solved. So, for example, with TransPower, we were working on, it was computer vision, so it was identifying damaged power lines from drone video footage instead of having humans hanging out the sides of helicopters, which seemed like a very good use case. We did some work with Ministry of Education. That was a lot of teacher parent feedback on the future of education, and they wanted to kind of get the trends out of large volumes of unstructured survey responses. Again, now would be a piece of cake. We'd be able to whip it up not in a few hours. Back then, it was a lot longer. We didn't have the out of the box AI. With New Zealand Police, there's a whole world of different use cases, but the first one was when we recruit new police, they have a 1,000-page PDF that they need to understand in order to operate the internal systems. And so there's a lot of control F going on and a lot of wasting time asking more experienced people how to use the system. Again, that's now a simple RAG implementation, right? Whereas back then it was like, this is, voodoo. How can you get reliable, good quality, accurate answers from AI? So again, that the use cases we had back then informed what was possible now, but those things used to take weeks and a lot of money because it was just a lot of human effort. And now it's kind of things you spin up in a free demo. I mean, it's incredible how much it's changed.
Yeah, I can imagine back in the day it was, custom projects and custom applications for what people are looking for. And you've sort of moved towards a platform, the platform space. You want to tell the audience about what you do and who you service?
Yeah, so we've always been on the journey of product market fit. Kind of AI product market fit has definitely been challenged as the capabilities of the technology have moved so quickly, as the market perception has moved so quickly. And so, yeah, so now we've moved on from enterprise and government onto small business, which is a delightful shift, I've got to say. It's great working with business people where you can have a real impact both on them and on their businesses, which is really exciting. And we focus on helping SMBs grow profitably. So we want people to grow. It's good for the economy. We don't want people to focus on removing humans from the workforce. I don't think that's good for the economy. And we want people to grow profitably. So we are focused on productivity and efficiency, but more to help them make more money. End of the day, profits mean taxes, and taxes help the economy go around. So we really want to help those businesses using AI to go in the right direction. And we started off, we were really quite narrow, and we were focused on some problems in the finance space around accounts payable, accounts receivable. But businesses kept coming back saying, that's great, but what about all of the other things that we want to speed up? And so we resisted for a while because, the mantra from Silicon Valley and investors generally has been go narrow, go deep and own that space and then kind of start expanding once you dominate that space. But we just found that we kept on having conversations with customers who were really keen to get a all of business platform where they could put all of the problems that they had into one place, so they could really partner with somebody, they could help with the upskilling and so on and so forth. And so, yeah, 12 months ago, just over 12 months ago, that's really what we began to focus on, was building this platform where there's kind of like an unlimited number of ways that you could get value from it. And that's fundamentally what today's AI is all about, right? It's kind of like an Excel spreadsheet. You either know how to use it for a shopping list or you know how to use it to run a small country's economy. End of the day, the technology still remains the same. And so we really think there's just a huge opportunity to help businesses that haven't been at the cutting edge of technology, and they don't have teams of developers. They may have some technology enthusiasts, maybe if they're lucky, but they've missed out on the big opportunities, either around mobile or around cloud. They're more traditional businesses, but they want now to leap from don't have much to want to be, at the head of the game. And so that's why it's super exciting to work with people with that kind of ambition and that kind of mentality.
Awesome. And so how do you position yourself alongside or potentially even a competitor to the likes of a Copilot or Gemini, which are probably baked into a lot of organizations? They're the Copilot, the conversational AI layer. As I understand it, you're not playing in that space. You're more on the automation workflow space. Is that accurate?
We're kind of a bit of a blend, to be honest. So the expectation is we want to have this chat thing because we kind of playing around with it either with ChatGPT or some of the other products that you've talked about. So there's an expectation of talking to AI and kind of getting the value from that. Even if it's very basic, there's still kind of an expectation there. So we have that capability. But one of the things that we found was that's different, and still is the case, different against the Copilots and the Geminis for the basic kind of user, is the blank page problem. We just kept on hearing, what can I do with AI? How do I get started? And so right from the very beginning, we had pre-built apps within Numa addressing simple use cases, meeting analysis. Yeah, you can kind of get it done with Teams or Google Meet or whatever, but people wanted to add additional documents for context to have much richer meeting reports that actually led to actions rather than just a summary of what was spoken about. And so that was one of the first ones. Contract review, financial document reviews, CV reviews. Again, things which we would have seen a long time ago as custom GPTs or something similar. But again, the businesses that we target, they haven't seen those things. They don't want to get to learn to build a tool or utilize a tool in that way. And so that's what we kind of pre-built. And one of the other key things was taking the AI to the data, not taking the data to the AI. So anybody that was still or is still using some of those consumer grade tools, there's still some risk, around security and privacy. It's a lot less than back in the day when it first all started, when the models were being trained on our data pretty explicitly. Although even just recently, Claude updated their T's and C's, where again you had to explicitly say you didn't want them to train on our data. So again, we just wanted to take that kind of fear away, and so every customer gets their own dedicated cloud instance, like a private SaaS, and we put all of Numa into that environment. So it's only for them. It's not shared with anybody else. The models, the LLMs, get brought into that environment in a fixed state, so there's no kind of training of the models and so on. And so that's what people wanted, was something that they could rely on and trust because it was architected in that way. And also there's people also want a partner. And unfortunately, or fortunately, Microsoft have teams of people willing to do workshops and hold people's hand on that journey. And we're local, right? People can see our faces, they can reach out to us, they can meet us. And so that was what people wanted, was a genuine partner on that journey.
That's awesome. I wasn't aware about the platform deployment to a local, not local, but single sort of cloud that people can feel trusted, and what they're doing with their data isn't going to be exposed to the masses, and that's a big challenge in New Zealand is trust in AI in particular. And then in terms of how much flexibility people have on the platform, like you mentioned, pre-trained or pre-built applications or web apps, how much customization can one go to without having to chat to your team and build out on the platform?
Yeah, initially it was very inflexible. We just wanted to get stuff out there. We were in control of everything as we built out the use cases through talking to people in workshops and so on. Now we've just got in preview agents. And so now we've got an agent builder, which allows you to do all the stuff that you want to do in a very non-technical way. So we designed it in a way which is we will create a kind of job description or agent description template, which is semi-technical, but the end users need to worry about the technical bits. And so again, like a human, it's like, well, what is the role that you want it to do? What are your expectations around quality control and so on and so forth? It's connected to reference documents, so whether it needs brand voice or other kind of guidelines, and then you can connect it to systems. So the big thing is being able to connect into your existing SaaS applications, and that is really. It's really what everyone expected AI to be able to do right off the bat. I think people like Sam Altman and others who are talking about, the age of the AI assistant is here. You can connect to all your systems and so on. They were talking in a US centric, Silicon Valley centric, where every bit of software that they were using was already available in terms of AI, MCPs, and APIs. Whereas the real world, the majority of the real world, doesn't have all of their systems already in the cloud and already connected, right? So there's still a bit of a journey to go on, but it's now a lot closer to reality than it was before. And so the connecting of the systems and the agent builder then gives everyone massive flexibility. It also takes off the demand on our team to pre-think everything, pre-build everything. We keep the apps in there, and we will continue to have apps because that's where they're kind of much more templated and rigid. You want the same input and you want to get the same output. If you're reviewing a CV, you kind of want the same analysis. If you're reviewing on contracts, you want the same kind of analysis. So we just remove any variability in the results. So for some use cases, that's what people need.
Awesome. And can I bring my own key to different types of models to plug into your platform, or how does that work?
So yeah, I mean, most of the people have no idea what goes on behind the scenes with AI. They may have heard of ChatGPT and may have heard of Gemini or Copilot, but no real understanding of what an LLM is or whether you can even bring an API key. They would literally think it was a physical key. And so we kind of don't need that level of technicality. What we build behind the scenes is architecturally, we can switch around to whatever LLMs make sense. And so we future-proofed ourselves in that way, and we build on top of AWS Bedrock, which gives us just, apart from the proprietary ones of Google and Microsoft, we can pretty much get access to them all. But also within some tasks and workflows, we don't need the bells and whistles of one of the best models. We can kind of downgrade the model to a faster one, which means there's less cost involved as well. And so one of the key things for our customers is they only get one bill from us. So there's no additional cloud costs. We basically manage all of the consumption costs for them, so they can get a predictable monthly and an annual fee. And that's what we kept on hearing, right? Was how much is my bill going to be? Because if I do this or do that in the cloud, that I'm not sure what I'm going to be paying. And that was really beginning to scare people off. And so we decided to just take that pain away and pass the pain on to us to manage. But, we've got the technical skills to be able to do that monitoring and management, whereas most customers don't.
That's awesome. I mean, this could be pretty transformational to a lot of businesses. I mean, as you say, plug and play within their environment, one bill, keep things simple, don't have to think about the technology. I mean, a lot of these people do not care about tech, as you say. So what does that typical kind of journey look like in terms of, do you see businesses coming on, as you say, it's all around meetings and making those more efficient, and then the next step is X, and then what is the Y? Like, how do you think about taking businesses on a journey, and whether or not this is the right or wrong way? Do they go from a place of, I know I need this to make myself more efficient, then I know that I'm going to need to perhaps rebuild my business for the age of AI? Do they think in those terms, or is that just beyond the...
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. Some have leapt straight to, wow, I just want AI to transform everything. Not quite sure what that means yet, but I'm worried that my business won't exist in whatever time period you put in front of that. Others are more like, I just want to be more efficient. I want to grow my business, and I realize AI is going to be able to help me on that journey. So I'm much more near-term kind of focused. And there are a few in between, but most of them, their journey actually is from, we don't use it at all, to we want to start using it. And then we need to figure out what that journey looks like. And it's just having that open-mindedness. They're willing to go on the journey. They don't have any great expectations in terms of how they're going to have to reorganize their business, but they know they're going to have to do something because any automation is going to change the process. Any new way of working is going to impact people's jobs, hopefully only in a positive way, but they're just willing to go on that journey. And for everyone, even for us that have been involved in it a long time, it still feels like very early days, on the journey of this evolution of AI. And so we're finding we've got, some people who literally didn't know about Control-C, Control-V on the keyboard. And so you got people at that level who are willing to go, hey, look, if you tell me this is possible, I'm going to trust you and I'm going to go on this journey. And so that person, as an example, they're in industrial equipment, very non-tech business, lots of paperwork everywhere, just one of those typical, very successful, but still, pretty outdated from a technology perspective. They were filing their documents inside folders inside of Outlook, so they really struggling to find things. And so you add a little bit of AI into that and go, right, now you can find content in your emails that took you hours to find on an accumulated basis. Instead of your field sales team having to come back and where English is a second language, fill out quite technical documents, you can now just get them to record a voice memo, have that come through, have it uploaded to Numa, and it will populate, a template for their technical. A lot of those things for them is just revolutionary.
Yeah,
and it's just kind of really changing the way that both how they think about the efficiencies in their bit. They just didn't know these things were possible. And so I think that's where a lot of people still are at, is they kind of see this tech stuff, people talking about it, but because it's kept at either a super geeky level and it'll just too change the world kind of level, or it's down at very, very simple Q&A, help me find some information type stuff. They really don't know what's useful and usable for them as a small business. And so being able to just have either myself or one of the team go in and sit down with these types of people and help open up their eyes, because they will literally just be saving hours of evenings and weekends, right? Trying to stay on top of their businesses. And in this kind of economy, people can't take their foot off the gas. They're trying to win every deal, trying to keep every customer happy, trying to make sure they're kind of getting the most value out of every employee. And the ways of doing things in the past, they can see aren't going to work or aren't going to be sustainable. And the only option they have is to put more hours in themselves. And obviously that is not good for anybody's health. And so they're delighted to actually be partnering with somebody to help them go on this journey, when previously they felt like just kind of overlooked in some respects. So that's what's really been the joy for me, is to be able to go and help people in manufacturing, construction, engineering, again, people that were overlooked because they just didn't really get cared for in terms of the technology providers.
It must be satisfying, as you say, as one business owner to another, saying, I can help you here and give you some time back. And I was going to say, like, what are the biggest blockers to these businesses actually adopting AI? But as you say, I think the big guys just don't pay any attention, or they're not connected into the tech networks that are expected to be connected into to kind of find out this information. So how do you get in touch with them? Like, do you run knowledge sessions in Wellington? Are you connected into different communities that give you access to these types of leaders and business owners?
Yeah, to be honest, it's back to kind of old school business development, right? I mean, that was my background, whatever, 20 odd years ago, longer than that. And it's kind of come back around again, where when we say we're kind of partner first, we don't just mean from a tech side, we actually mean kind of in market. So AI is all about trust at the moment, not just trusting the technology, but who you're trusting to give you advice, and who are you trusting to come into your business and get connected to your business. And so we were always really conscious that, especially in small businesses, that is just super, super important. And so we're working with professional directors, we're working with business coach networks, and we're working with industry associations, working with anybody that really is in a position to give or be asked to give advice around this technology. And so we're kind of working really hard to build out those networks. Some of them are local, some of them are national, some of them are regional, some of them are global even. And so we're really focused on those. And so enabling those partners to get better themselves. So kind of they become a customer first and a partner second. They get to understand the product, and then they're just super, super happy to refer. We still do educational sessions. We run stuff with chambers of commerce. We run stuff with, say, industry bodies. And there's a lot of that going on, right? And we're happy to contribute and continue to support it. Part of it is just brand recognition and brand awareness. But we are now definitely getting deeper into specific industries where they want problems solved for them. They don't just want to know some generic kind of solutions that anybody could want. And so that's driving us down the path of connecting with more legacy software providers who built something for a desktop with a server kind of sat under somebody's desk, and then they moved it to the cloud, but didn't actually modernize their software. So now their users are like, well, my data's still disconnected. I've got something in the cloud, but I don't get any additional benefit from that. And so now we're beginning to work on how do we get those type of software vendors into a situation where they can start getting connected into systems like Numa and others, so their end customers can start getting benefits from their data. So there's still a long way to go for many industries who aren't on cloud first software, which is probably the vast majority. There's a lot of accounting software, ERP, stock management, human resources, compliance. There's a lot of systems that are not designed to be AI accessible, and that's the journey that we want to help people go on.
Awesome. Must be super satisfying. You've just spun up a new venture is it named Nolia, I believe I saw, to do with procurement or one of those areas. Do you want to tell us a bit more about how that's spawned?
Yeah, so we've in partnership with a few really good people around Wellington, we worked on a project with Callahan Innovation, and so pre them being devolved, we were working with them to identify ways in which for their funding processes. So obviously they give out grants and loans to businesses across the country in the region of $100 million a year from memory, but they were spending about $20 million on administration of giving out the money. So there's a lot of wasted, one would say, money. It wasn't having the impact that they wanted. And so one of the consequences of the recent downsizing in government was, well, how do we still do what we need to do, but with less people? And the only way really was to use technology. And so that's what we demonstrated, and then brought together a group of people that were super interested in the space, well connected into other funding bodies and into procurement. So similar process for RFPs. You spend a lot of money trying to spend money. And so the cost of procurement, even for government, is tens of millions of dollars a year. I mean, it's huge. That I thought we wanted to power and be involved with, but it needed really dedicated go-to-market, dedicated expertise. It wasn't a core Numa proposition. But we're finding that there's a few in different areas. We're working on something for resource consenting for local councils, working on areas of construction around quoting. So there's going to be these other kind of ventures that, because of our reputation or kind of length of time in the market, we've got these connections that feel like they need dedicated ventures and dedicated people. So yeah, it's really cool to be able to take a little bit of our capability and kind of fractionalize it a little bit and put it out there for other businesses to grow.
Awesome. Well, you're doing plenty in the community and for a small business as well, which is awesome to see. I suppose before we start to close up, thinking ahead and the bigger picture for New Zealand, where do you think we should be focusing next as a country in terms of moving in the right direction for really adopting this technology? Like, not to talk about the government too much, but do you think it all comes down to education in the space? Are we not partnering together across, businesses, communities? I'd love your thoughts on where we are as an economy and where things should be starting to head.
Yeah, I mean, I've been relatively vocal on the topic for a while. I tried to get involved with central government back in 2020, probably, when the first algorithm audit came out and stopped any investment in AI back then. They classified an Excel spreadsheet or formula in an Excel spreadsheet as an algorithm, and therefore everyone went, whoa, we don't want all of this audited. And so they just kind of stopped. So that for me was an example of a knee-jerk reaction when there's a little bit of uncertainty around a technology. And so then nothing was done. And it basically, in New Zealand, there was like an AI winter for probably 4 or 5 years because there was just too much fear around it. This time around, it's been a slightly different approach, which has been really good. And I think that's a result of people being able to get into ChatGPT and go, look, this is amazing. We have to start using it. Whereas when we first did it a few years ago, it was like, not really sure why we should be doing this AI stuff anyway. So we're kind of happy to sit on our hands. So I think there has been a lot of market-led or even consumer-led, user-led pressure this time, which has been really positive. I think it's still been disappointing that there hasn't been a clear pathway forward for the country, right? How should New Zealand benefit and therefore support, invest, align resources, for the best of the country? We've got a few industries that really we would consider the crown jewels. They could be prioritized in terms of ways in which AI could be put into those and turned into better products, better services, better exports. But also, generally, it does come down to education. I mean, there's a lot of leadership training required, a lot of critical thinking required to go into strategies. It's not all about money. It means financial support for small businesses and exporters to invest in technology. Clearly, it's self-serving to me, but we've seen it happen in Australia. I think it was the state of Victoria put up like $20 million to help small businesses pay for subscriptions to ChatGPT, right? Just because they knew the productivity gain. So, there's definitely a lot that could be done. Obviously, we're a spreadsheet economy. We appreciate there's not a lot of money to go around, but I think in the absence of a direction, even if it's a let's focus on what we've got and make it better and just grow exports, it's really hard for people to know if you're a graduate, what job should you look to do in New Zealand because you don't know what the future of the industry is.
Mm.
Or if you're a startup or a service provider, again, it's kind of hard to know where to invest when you have no clear direction on where things are going. So that for me is the role of government, is to help people see into the future a bit and know that there's some certain things and some commitments to that future. And when the technology is moving so fast, people have to make decisions really quick. And right now, it's really challenging for people. So yeah, I think there's investment in education is critical, but hopefully the government can find some ways to give very direct support to the businesses that we need to grow because as an economy, we've got to find ways to help them.
I totally agree. And, not to say they should necessarily back winners, but there should be an element of like we're putting the country's strategy behind a few particular industries, which, as you say, we do. But just to make it a bit more concrete, like this is the infrastructure we're putting in place for these particular industries. And whether that be education, agriculture, tourism, doesn't really matter. It's more just around this is where we're going to support the community and we're going to make sure that the right entities are set up to begin creating some different governance models that really benefit the economy in those industries is going to be important moving forward. I do hope it happens in the next couple of years because I feel as though we're going to release a second update to our strategy by 2027 and we'll still be none the wiser as to where we're going and what we should be doing as a country. So fingers crossed. I mean, we'll never quite see the same emphasis put on it as we see with the US and having dinner with the president and people throwing around nine figures and all the rest of it to make sure 12 figures, I should say. That'll never quite happen, but one day we'll see some emphasis from top down.
Yeah, I mean, I think small businesses are going to run as fast as they can anyway, right? I mean, I think those that are really going to lean into it will succeed. I kind of tell people if you invest a day of your time now, it'll be worth a month next year and probably a year, and the year after that. So it's just a case of people realizing they do need to start investing in AI in their people to be able to use AI. If government direction and support comes along, then great, you're in a really fantastic position to take advantage of it. There's no point waiting. I mean, those that wait, I think, are going to suffer. So ultimately, everyone's just got to crack into it.
How do you think about it with your own family? I mean, you've got the sixth balloon behind you, right? You've got children. So how do you encourage them or train them or get them thinking along that path? And I know it's too early to be thinking about careers, but giving them the right skills now to be AI native moving forward, I'm assuming is your stance. But how do you think about that in that education process at home?
Yeah, no, it is. It is challenging to think what will kids be doing. My oldest is 12, so like 5, 6 years time, man, the world could be a very different place. But then I imagine people thought that 30, 40, 50 years ago when technology was kind of moving at relative pace as well. I think fundamentally, and this is what I also say to business leaders about their organizations is I hope that AI will allow us to spend more time being human. And so in the workplace, that means our interactive skills, our thinking skills, our critical analysis skills, all of those types of things, the ability to build trust in order to make a sale or get a contract to kind of, in terms of a partnership. So I think the administration of business is going to get a lot less, not just in business, the administration of government, of research, of service delivery, whatever. So a lot of that's going to be a lot less. But therefore, the focus on less on how to be a component of the factory, but actually how to be a human, I think is going to be super important. So I think emotional intelligence, is going to become hugely valuable. As I say, critical thinking, because a lot of the basics, the nuts and bolts of what was previously required for thinking is no longer going to need to be required for thinking. So we've got to kind of level up. So unfortunately, it'd be tough for the education system to keep up to kind of with the pace of technology. But fundamentally, they're still teaching those things. So maybe there was the rise of the philosopher will come back again. Those that think about thinking are actually going to be really important. So I'm kind of hopeful that actually the career paths mean as parents, we actually get to help them become better prepared because we've got to fundamentally help them to think, say, be emotionally intelligent, be good at interacting with other humans. So actually for parents, it should be exciting because we haven't got to learn chemistry and physics, all that kind of stuff, maybe as much as we used to, but we can tell them how to be good humans.
Yeah, absolutely. And, as we've just touched on with the government, we can't really leave it into the hands of others to coach them in the right direction necessarily for all skill sets. So Yeah, it's got to start at home. But Asa, really appreciate you taking the time. How about we finish off with a quick fire round?
Awesome. Let's do it.
All right. ChatGPT, Claude, or Gemini?
Claude.
Claude, because of the coding capability, or?
I started with ChatGPT like everybody else, and because we knew we were going to be building on AWS, not Microsoft, we kind of started, using Anthropic through the API, and so I ported more my personal interactions onto Claude, and so yeah, kind of stuck with it. Still really like it. Haven't used any of its coding apart from producing wonderful HTML visualizations. So yeah, Claude all the way.
Awesome. Most overhyped AI trend right now?
I think agents probably. Although we're bringing in agents, I think the leap, when you say an agent, one, it hasn't got a specific definition yet, which is always problematic. But I think we're being kind of overhyped on agents can now do everything, and it's not the case yet. There's still a long way to go. They need training wheels there. I kind of say like they're like relatively polite teenagers. They'll nod and say yes until you're not looking, and then they'll go off and do their own thing. So there's still quite a lot of work to be done there. So I understand why it's overhyped, but certainly I think it's overhyped.
Love it. And what's one New Zealand company that's quietly doing some great AI work that not many people might have heard of, or that flies under the radar?
Yeah, so I've had the fortune of talking to one of the senior people at Fonterra, and there's a lot of really good stuff going on there. I was kind of bemoaning the fact to this person that there's not many organizations that New Zealand companies can go, hey, I've seen this organization doing it, therefore it must be ready or it must be usable. That's something that I've always talked about in New Zealand. There isn't the exemplar organizations where we go, I want to be like this company because they've done it and they've trod the path and now I can have confidence. And so I'm trying to encourage some of those big companies, all small companies, to kind of go, look, it's here, it's real. New Zealand, funnily, has a little bit of a scarcity mindset, I think, where people don't want to share in case they then lose the benefit as a result of sharing. And so then not everybody gets the benefit. So I'm hopeful that whether it be through quarterly reports or whatever kind of market pressure, that people have to start talking about what they're doing. But yeah, from what I hear, and there's some public, some not public, Fonterra are doing incredible things. That's going to benefit New Zealand economy massively.
Awesome. Would totally agree with that. They've got some smart people running that show. And what's your number one recommendation for people to get started in AI? And rather than just get started or ask it how to do a task, do you have a particular use case that you recommend to people when you're in conversation?
I really get them to think about having AI as like a research assistant. There are research modes, obviously. If people have that, then that's because that for me then blows people away. If they're still stuck on the assumption that it's just a better Google and it's just an answer machine, getting them to put in a relatively decent research kind of proposal request query, and then watching it do its thing, its thinking, its sourcing, its structuring of the report. Yeah, that really gets people to shift the way that they think about something. I'm looking forward to, and it's not too far away, where demonstrating browser control and being able to do things, on a website. That again is going to shift the perception of what AI can do from, say, just the answer machine into this PhD level researcher, but then into actually being able to take action. That's really going to start opening up people's minds.
Awesome. Love it. Well, thank you, Asa, for joining us today, and thank you to our listeners. Please subscribe to the channel for weekly episodes and to hear more from the people building New Zealand's AI future. Until next time, thanks for tuning into the AI Corner.